Welcome to round 2. This is for the loop for execute. The previous video covered the loop for interface node, and this is going to be a small graph setup. So I'm going to drop my panel in just above, grab an operator, and we can call this delete underscore all mods. Just remember, keep changing your operator names. Don't make it what the last add-on was. Write them down if you have to. I think I've even got the, let's see, where is that? Never mind, I glitched out the other day. I don't have any of my extensions currently. It's okay, we'll just do it this way. I was going to throw a sticky note up, courtesy of skdom from the Serpens Discord chat. So we're going to want a loop, and we're going to have to set up a bunch of stuff. We're going to need some checks, balances. We're going to need a button for sure. Let's tag this in and call it eloops for our specific setup here. This is going to be execute loops. So I'll just call it eloops. And we got a nice little button right here. And for something like that, I always like to throw in my icon node and pull up something somewhat decent. Doesn't matter. I probably hook this up with a switch node, but just for now, we can do this thing. I just got this one little button in the middle here. So what do we want to do? We want to set up an operator. We want to loop through all modifiers, and it would make a lot of sense if we actually had another button to add our specialized modifier. So what we can do is I'll pull this in as a custom button. That's the delete. I can throw in another one, and I'll just Control-C, copy, delete these. I was going to do something different here, but we'll just call this the loop execute, and Control-V that, and I'll go ahead and create a save point. Throw this in my practice folder, and we will call this eloops tutorial. So when you guys go to pick up that blend file, you will have it .blend. And now we got a nice save point. And my stuff disappeared because this isn't calling main anymore. It's calling loops. So now that button will pop up. And I really want these two on a row just to make it look good for now. This one will have its own special operator. And we can set up another operator here. And this one will be add modifier. And go back to main. Remove that from main because that's not where it is anymore. And I want to go to eloops and add modifier. Just so you can kind of see what I'm doing there. And save. And there's nothing there, so I'll go ahead and just throw a little plus symbol on. I like this one. We'll just call that add bevel. We'll align these so this looks nice. And I want to throw a box in. And I want to have an if interface check. We'll throw in objects. And I want to say, hey, if there's an active object, go ahead and show this. If there is no active object, I don't want to error out. So we'll do it that way. Now I got an active object. I've got my add-on. Save point. Let's jump over. I think our interface stuff looks pretty good for now. Go to the loop execute. And the first thing I want to do is create a modifier. So let's go ahead and right click, context, blend data browser as usual. Let's go to context. Let's go to We can go to active object. We can go to modifiers. We don't really have one, so I'm just going to click new, grab that property, Shift V, and I want to go ahead and drop something in. This would be my bevel. I'll just call this the NS for normal Steve bevel. And I'll make sure that I go in here and select bevel. So now whenever I push this button, this gets a bevel, which is fine. And now if I come over here, I'll see that I have the NS bevel. There's no presets or anything on it. We didn't do anything. What you can do is from here we could grab a couple properties real quick. Let's reselect our context. Go to active object, go to modifiers. We're going to need the NS bevel pointer. So let's just Shift V that bad boy in right there. Save. We can go in here and grab a mount. So you know how to do this. Grab a filter. Type in amount. Might not work. It might be size. Let's hover the right mouse over. It's actually width. It's not amount. So if we go back to here, we'll see that we have width without that /, and I can grab that as a property. And if I want, I can also grab segments and just type in SEG, enter. Segments will pop up, and then I can drop that in as well, and then I can start building stuff out. But I do want that pointer because I'm going to need it. And what we can do is grab a set property node. Grab a couple of these, tag these in. What is the width? The width is a float value. You can see that here. Now with the decimal point. So I want to grab float, switch that, and I want to set this to something very small but decent. So 0.05. We can try that out. And then this one will be integers because it's a single digit. And we'll go ahead and set these. We don't have to do anything else there. You want this to reference the modifier NS bevel. And we'll set this one to something like 10. And now we can actually delete that and add it back. And we actually have some sort of a bevel here now. That's not terrible, but let's see. What would really make that look sharp? 0.01. So we can set this to 0.01. Delete that. Add our bevel. Woohoo. Looks like we got a nice bevel. So that's all good. And one thing you can do, let's get rid of all that. I want to throw this into a function. That way I can reference this. I can add to it. And I'll show you how this works. It's pretty cool. So function return, just get into the habit of doing that in case you need to ever return data. You want to change something, you can do that. This will be add ns underscore bevel. Copy that, come over, type in r underscore, copy paste that, and boom, you've got your nomenclature. So now when you pop this out and add the node, you can grab ns bevel and reference it and tag it in, and now you've got a function. Very clean. And then you can junction that, and we'll just say this is the add bevel function. Let's go to node, add a color to that, and so like functions can be like a orangish yellow, and you can bring that up so you can kind of see what's going on. Makes it very easy to reference. And because this is part of it, I could throw it all in there. And this is going to be, something else. I can junction that too. And then when I get ready to go down there, we'll be good. So now what we want to do is we want to output this float value. So I can output the float value integer, and then I can output this one as well. I'll just put W for width, S for segments. Go ahead and save it, and now I've got it. So I can put my 0.01, I can put my 10 back in there. I remove that, and add the bevel. You can see we're all set up. It looks great. You can also add the amount specifically as a property, the width, and you can display that. So I'm just going to copy that real quick and jump over to the main. And once my active object is selected, let's see, where do I want this? If everything is on a row, then I want a column node right before that. Click Align. Let's grab a display property. I don't know what I'm talking about there. And Control V, and I could tag this in, and now this will control the bevel just specifically for the NS bevel. So if by chance I have another mesh in here, if I can find it, am I losing my mind? There we go, cube. And I go over here and I want to say generate a bevel modifier. Grab this. It's not going to change the other one. This is very specific, and this is a great way to set up some very powerful items. So I have to select this one and then change it or add more segments to it, and I cannot modify them without that name. So this is going to be extremely helpful. So if you have this selected, you can do it like that. Now this is going to lead us in to another powerful thing that we can do at the end. I'll show you. Super cool. Now let's go back over into the loop for execute. So now we can add a modifier. It's got a function. If by chance I wanted to add some different things to this, because this is going to be a it's going to turn into a bigger tutorial. What we can do is I can do an enum map execute, and I can throw the enum map in. This is super cool. I think you guys really like this. And I go to properties, and I can say bevel cats. That's going to be for bevel category, and I want this to be an enum. I'm going to put the property here, and I can tag that directly in. And I've got continue on. I don't want that, so I want enum option. And now I can just duplicate this node and go to the next option. Now, unfortunately, you have to do a little updating here. This could be NS bevel 1. All right, copy that, bring it down, put 2 in, so it looks like that. Add an item to your enum because it's not dynamic. They're just going to do items. Let's throw in bevel 1. Let's throw in bevel 2. So now that's going to work. And we can go back to main, grab this as a property. Let's display this as well. And I think this one could technically go first. So I can say which type of bevel I want to add. Let's add it like that, and like that. There we go. That's what I wanted. So if I add this secondary bevel, they're the same. So we'll have to change that to something accentuated. So 0.05 with 1. Save point. Don't forget, or you're really going to be hurting. And you can say, let's do something a little different here. I want to grab the on property update now, and that is for the bevel categories, the bevel cats, and I'll tag that in instead of this. And that looks good. And now both of these should be outputting the same data, so technically I should be able to do that. And so if I go to bevel 1, we get the nice bevel with the 0.01 and the 10. And then if I go here, you get number 2, which is 0.05 and a 1. Totally different bevel. Super cool. It's in a category list. You can kind of select whatever you want. And then the add a bevel button, which is going to be this dude right here. You can, once again, just add a preset in here, or just, whatever. you can add this in, and we'll just say this is 0.005, and you're starting them off at, say, 3 segments. Shift R, let's just compile, successful, good. Now, this would be your initial button that you have them add. So boom, hey, I just added my bevel, I can control it, I like it, but I want to switch this to level 1. Boom, now it switches everything, or boom, I'm going to switch this to level 2. Boom, and I can then, of course, modify all of that the way I want. Now, the only problem is you're going to add one of these every single time, and you don't really want to do that. You just want to update these properties and run these functions. Okay, so inside of the function, we're going to need an if statement, and this is where the other property comes in and say, hey, if this property exists, then we want to either do or not do something. I promise I didn't want to do that. Get back in there. There we go. Save point, get a property exists node, and we can tag these in, and now say, hey, if this property is true, we don't want to do anything except maybe update. If it's false, go ahead and add. So what's going to happen is if you delete all of these now and you click to add bevel, just go ahead and show you. You can click add bevel all you want. It's already got one. The only problem is now this is tied into our function. So what we're going to want to do is we can shift D and bring these out. And we can make another little function here and run this one as its own specialized function and output these values again. And I will call this width 2, and I'll call this S2 for segments 2 and width 2. And it doesn't have a return node, so let's grab one and throw it in. And we will call this function the update. So this can be an update bevel function. Copy, run over here, R underscore boom. Throw that bad boy in like that. And now this can be replaced with this. So now bevel 1 looks like this at 0.01 and S2 at 10. And then I can just do another one and tag it in. I can have as many of these as I want. And this would be 0.05 and 3 perhaps, like it was. And so now this should update when I do this. So level 1, boom, changes our bevel look completely and does this, but nothing is adding another modifier. So this is pretty sweet. This is a good setup. And I can still do this global thing. So now you're looping, you're on property updating, you're adding your initial setup function, which you want to add. It's the initial one. We're controlling the width and the segments in our loop, and you can throw other functions, other things in here too. So if I shift, say, spacebar, search, and type in shade smooth or whatever you want, you can right click and grab that. Shift V, run operator, boom. You can use your auto smooth, and there's a way to do this. It's not going to work too much longer because we have the auto nodes group, but whatever, I'll cover this. So you can just pull up the convert radians, just type in radians and plug this into the auto smooth angle. It's going to do the conversion for you because it's really crazy to convert radians. Switch this degrees to radians, and then you can put in 30 degrees. It will automatically switch that and perform an auto smooth operation. As you see, we don't have an auto smooth operation, so I could initially do that, and or I can just throw this in to my function instead of duplicating the nodes over and over again, which would be a problem. and eventually that will slow down your add-on. So if I'm duplicating this here, here, and here, and maybe I've got it in the other function as well, don't want that, just want that to be part of the function. So this should go away now. When I select one, it's now auto smooth angle and it's changing everything, which is nice. And so that shading looks really good now. And now you can kind of like screw around with that a little bit. And if you don't like it, you can go right back and it's going to auto smooth for you. Now I'm going to cut this short because I could do a ton more with all of this and put in a lot more if statements and checks. I encourage you to do that. But just so the tutorial doesn't end up being an hour long, I want to go ahead and just jump into this part. Now I want to say, hey, if this property exists, and we can just copy this, Control C, that always works for me. I'm going to paste this stuff in. And we need an if statement right here. So we can tag all this in. So if this is true, then I want to run a delete function, but I need to loop through some things first. If it is false, then I want to possibly put in a report node so I can report something to the user. So if it's false, I can report, let's see, I'll just copy that and I'll just say nsbevel modifier not present. And if I delete that, and I don't have a delete button, so let's go back real quick, make sure we have a delete button. I think I'll just throw that in at the end. And that should be on the row. Don't need anything there but like a little trash icon. So you can throw the trash icon in there and that'll kill it. So what we want to do is custom, not for main but for loop. And this will be delete all mods, and just going to delete very specific one. So now if I was to click on it, nothing's actually going to happen. Now if I click on this, it's going to go through and it's going to look for that and it's going to loop, but nothing's really connected yet. So just going to get errors. So we got to build the thing out because it's just looping into nothing with with no group on it. So let's throw an object node in there because I want to scan through all objects. It wouldn't make sense to do anything else. So I want to grab all objects. We can take advantage of our friend Portal here from the last tutorial and create an output as a property. And then we'll switch this to property and then create yourself another save point. Now, one of those things we're going to want to do, and we're going to need another if statement. So you can go ahead and throw in an if statement right here. And for the repeat, we can jump right in. Let's do some Boolean math, tag in the bool math, and we want to say, hey, is object type a mesh? And then I'm going to need a modifier object node. Now I'm going to want to make sure this is definitely in the loop. And I'm also going to need another loop over here because we're going to loop through a loop, if you will. And this is going to be the more confusing part, but once you get this, it'll make your transition into using the interface loops and the execute loops very seamless and very powerful. So I need to feed the Boolean math node some other data. So I want to copy my context. I'm going to jump over context, view layer objects. I want to select the object that actually has the modifier. Go to cube, go to modifiers, and I've got the pointers, but I have the collection. So I'm just going to grab the collection. I'm going to throw the collection in right here as part of my check. And I want to set this from cube to property. And this is now looking at modifiers that are on all objects and that are a mesh inside of the loop. Okay, so now we've got that set up. What we'll be able to do is if that is true, then we can go ahead and loop through the actual modifier collection itself. Now this is a setup you definitely want to remember, so you can loop through some data and then loop through the modifiers and then output some more data that's going to be extremely useful for selecting sets of modifiers on objects, very specific, and not deleting any other modifier. So now what we want to do is go into the modifiers and let's see, view layer, cube. I want to go to modifiers, and I think if we go in here, we can just select name, and that should give us nothing because I didn't expand it. There we go. Let's try name again. Okay, so there we make sure you copy the right one, and we'll shift V that bad boy in there. And now what I want to do is I need to set this up with another check. So if by chance this particular name, which I'm going to compare, this would be my setup, I'm going to repeat that as well, and I'm going to say, hey, in these modifiers in this loop, I want to collapse this first property, collapse this one to property, it'll all disappear. You're just looking for the name modifiers, which is now coming from modifier objects, which is looping through all objects. Super cool. And it's got a constraint with the mesh via, hey, first thing, does this property even exist? So now what I want to do is I want to compare the data from here, and we'll grab a string node and say, hey, does this particular modifier exist as a named modifier? If it does, then we want something else to be true and happen. And we will grab a select set again. We're going to need one of those just like we did last time. They can be used in kind of like reverse operation. So we'll go back down here. And let's see, I want to go ahead and refresh all my data. It's kind of convoluted. So I want to go to view layer, objects. I'm going to grab that cube. And we can type in select set. So get the select set, and we'll dump in the select set. And if all of that is true, we want to select, grab this portal. We want to select the, based on the selection of what is actually in the loop. All right, and that's going to be set to true. And now we'll need another if statement. And we're going to say, hey, property exists. What property? We're going to go back, can shift D, another one of these. This is our main property. And say, hey, if this property exists, then we're going to do something else. And what are we going to do? Let's go back to the active object modifiers. Let's grab a remove. Let's drop the remove in. And if all of that is true, all the way down, don't worry, we'll cover all this again. Then I want to remove a particular modifier. And what modifier do I want to remove? I want to remove this one. And this one can be based on, and in fact, I think I need to go to data. Let's see, I don't want to be an active object. Let's go to the cube, let's go to the modifiers. Let's see if I can grab that pointer, because I need the extra port here, the extra socket, because these are active objects, and it's going to throw everything off just a touch. Context is super important, so you got to have it. And so now this can be tied in. Set that to property, tie it in. I'll bring this one over here. Set this one to property. Let's bring it into the loop. And I think I grabbed the active object remove modifiers as well. So let me go back. I'm having all kinds of fun here. Let's grab this one because you need it from objects. We're working with objects. So when you're in objects, like you're going through all objects, then you need to be in that context. Objects, objects, modifiers tied into objects, which is all good. There we go. And now what objects? It's going to be these objects. And so now our delete button can go through if we set it up correctly and delete that modifier, and it does. So that's pretty cool. One thing we can do, we can add our bevel. Let's add another bevel. And this is, if you're wondering what all this is my new setup for the hard surface toolbox. It's a pretty sick setup once you've got it all worked out. It's got parent-child referencing, and it's got a whole bunch of different things, and it's a very, very complex setup. Might teach that one day, but it's like it's a brain teaser, probably like a 3-hour tutorial. I don't know how to shorten that one, but we'll throw another bevel on, and we have an NS bevel and a regular bevel. What do you think is going to delete? And just so you know, we'll delete this one. This has both bevels. You can see that. If we click delete, guess what? We still have one bevel left. And like I said, we're going to pop an error too because NS bevel is not found because it's like all the checks are not there yet. But this is the basic form. So if you put in your if-else statements, you will not have that happen. None of those things will be there. And looking back, it looks like I added 2 deletes, so that's not necessary. I just need one of those. There we go. So now you just got the one trash can icon there. And if you don't know where your operator is for this, there's a little button. You just press that button. It takes the operator. Press this button. It'll tell you how many buttons are there. I had 2 buttons, so this will take you right back. And it'll even jump node graphs for you, which is really cool. And I was troubleshooting the report node. It should work, but for some reason, it's not. And this only works when connected to operators for sure. So let me see. I may have an upgraded version previously, but not now. So let's just do that again. Yeah, still popping an error. Not sure why. That's not supposed to be doing that. If it's true, we do this thing. If it's false, we do this thing. But that's not actually working at the moment. So for whatever reason, that is popping an error. I could recompile. Oh, I know what the error is. Got to go back to main. Let's grab a copy of this first, of the property exist, Control C, and the modifier pointer. And what we got to do is, very first thing when we're trying to display properties, I didn't do this, but it bit me in the tail, so here we go. What I can do is, I don't want the buttons to add to be not there, right? Like, so if you put a check in and says, hey, this isn't there, then your buttons to just add the very initial thing isn't going to be there to add the initial modifier. So I'm just going to throw one of these in for each one of these. Doesn't matter. No big deal. Not going to hurt anything. I'll bring that in here and this here. Now Shift R, compile successfully, because now I'm checking and I'm saying, hey, you know, if this is here, go ahead and display the float value. And that was for the width. So let me make sure I'm not messing up. Yeah, I don't have to have the categories out of there, but you know, it doesn't matter because it's tied to a function. So if the thing isn't there, you don't need it to show up in the first place. So if we go back over now, loop for then this bad boy should work now. If I go to click delete, it says hello. Okay, there we go. On deck troubleshooting. So let's add the bevel modifier first. And that can be a warning, right? It can be an info. Click that. That's a lot nicer. Or you can have an error. It says, hey, let's add the bevel modifier first. And so that's a nice way of doing it. I appreciate you guys watching. Go get that other tutorial and smash that subscribe, smash that like. That way you can support the channel in whatever way you want. Let's see. Yeah, go check out the other tutorial for the interface. Loops. Otherwise, I will put this little tiny setup here. I mean, that's a ton of work. You add this bevel and then you get this enum drop down. I mean, that took, I'm at 35 minutes and 53 seconds and counting. And that's just, I know what I'm doing. So go ahead and grab this off the Gumroad. Link will be in the description and the comments. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one. And that is your tutorial on the loop for execute. See you in the next one.